time is, which is like right now. I think I should start right now. Okay, go. Awesome. I will. We'll start right now. And well, thank you for coming to the session. The session is called Beyond Static, building a dynamic application with Gatsby. And well, my name is Jesus Manuel Olivas, and I am the co-founder of Octahedrite. I'll talk you in a few, about the company in a minute and a few minutes, And well, maybe I'm well known for being a Drupal contributor for a long time. Been in the Drupal world for I don't know, more than 10 years now. I was the creator of Drupal Console, a CLI for Drupal projects, Drupal. And you can find me on any social networks as JMOLIVAS, and Octahedrite.com is the website, and JMOLIVAS is my site. But what is Octahedrite? Well, we are a professional services agency, and we specialize in modern front-end tools. We also, do a lot of work with cloud-native architectures, automation, and CMS integration. And talking about CMS integration, mostly on decoupled projects, either WordPress or Drupal, with the using a front-end strategy as Gatsby or Next.js. So again, it's moving. Again, make sure you, ask questions, whatever you think is important to take care, and also, like tweet about it. Something you see here, it makes sense, it's interesting, I love it or hate it. Let me know. And before jumping into the session, I just want to mention this, show this screenshot. This is from Dre's presentation about Drupal Persona, and he mentioned about the 5 different personas that interact with a Drupal site or with a Drupal implementation. And he mentioned something like, we have backend developers, the developers that spend most of their time working with Drupal, building modules and doing custom code, and really dealing with Drupal, as a backend work. Most of the work, that I recall, I start doing with Drupal for so long. Then we have front-end developers or designers, and for each one of those personas, he mentioned what will be a good, fit to do on the upcoming version. For backend developers, improve API and replace all the hook system with events, which that sounds awesome. For front-end developers, he mentioned something about modernize JavaScript, either introduce React components and Vue components, and take advantage of component-based systems. He also, another persona that was mentioned is, it's pretty common in the Drupal world, and maybe it's not that common in other CMSs, and then this is maybe because how Drupal works, allow you to do a lot of site building. It means going to the interface and add features, construct a content model. So I mentioned maybe having automated update will be great, and there are more modules in core. So just kind of take advantage of, some of the well-known modules that are on the contribute space, and should be great to have it on core. Well, we have content creators, and yeah, I know. There's coming front-end dev is different than designer, but yeah, he was trying to group into this, categories to show what will be a good fit for them and which initiatives will be nice to have. Well, we have content creators, people that go to Drupal, enter content, and for them, something good with having modern, admin UI. Remember there was an attempt to do that, and now it's the whole idea. It's start little by little. Make it easier to, to use page builder tools, layout builder, maybe better interfaces for interacting with paragraphs and the block system. And last but not least, sellers, having a better look at admin theme will be easier for them to sell projects. A lot of, a better integration with third-party tools. Now let's start with the agenda of this project. I just did mention that the first slide, because I'm just going to revisit at the very end of the session. And let's say, and now the agenda. We're going to talk about web development and Jamstack, static content, decoupled Drupal, hybrid approach with Gatsby, and providing protected content, behind a user authentication. And finally, maybe there is possible to use, Gatsby to provide, now that we already have the user authentication, provide or allow to user to interact directly with Drupal and update content and profile, and that's doable, and we'll see how this looks like. Well, let's start talking about the web development. In general, if you've been working with web development for a couple of years back, and you might be working with what is called the traditional monolithic stack. So it means it's a monolithic application as Drupal, as WordPress, or other CMSs that out of the box provide all of their features. Like they provide a database for storing content. They provide a template layer for rendering content. They provide forums for users to go to the app and enter content. And well, when you are using this monolithic stack, what has happened when someone visits your site, there is someone loading a browser, and then what happens, that call gets, triggered, to a web server, and that web server, it should communicate back to your, applications. In this case, to Drupal, then, gets data from the database, and Drupal send that data back to the team layer, then all that markup that gets rendered, and finally the page gets built. And that page is the one that gets served to the visitor of your site. So it means your user have to go for all this flow in order to visit your page. And what is happening here is we have this monolithic server, right? So this server application, or within the stack, which takes care of most of the load of the workload for this on this call, right? From your client visiting your page to the web application to serving the HTML markup. So it means most of the work, it's done server side. And by default, every single person visiting your page is gonna get, trigger that process. But obviously we don't want that to happen, because every single time that we go to the database, we go to the server, we load assets, all that process, it costs time and money. So obviously, their Drupal provides several level of caching mechanisms, and also your hosting provider, it also takes care of providing an extra caching layers to save you from hitting your backend like several times. And then all these JavaScript frameworks start showing up, and I'm talking about like 5-6 years ago, whenever Backbone show up, whenever like Ember, and then there was a huge movement about single page applications. So it means we ship the full processing to client side. So instead of your client asking to the server and the server providing the full page already built, the client was asking your server for data, and the data was returned back into JSON format. Then the client, your client, in this case, your computer or your, mobile device, or whichever the device visiting the page, it was the one who was responsible for building that markup. So all the template system, it was client side. So again, you going back to the server was an API exposing an endpoint, returning your data, and then you take that data client side and build the markup. And and that's maybe provide you a better performance perception. But again, you were probably consuming a lot of resources from mobile, consuming a lot of memory, draining all those batteries, and maybe when you're visiting those sites with the computer, it's fine. But when you start using mobile devices for that, it's start getting a little more. It requires more resources from your device. So now, how this turned into in a static, static site generators, I mean, new era that we are seeing here. I mean, and I say new era because there's a lot of hype of that, but I mean, static site generators are, I mean, are being in the market for so long, like Jekyll and other tools. And what's the difference between this modern stack, you know, the Jamstack approach, compared with the monolithic approach? So the workflow for someone visiting your site gets like reduced to something like this. I mean, there is a visitor loading a page, and that page gets served by a CDN. So, and that page has all the markup already pre-rendered. So it means it was a pre-built process that already takes care of creating all that markup for you. And then your visitor, it's only have to go to that CDN, which is basically it's gonna serve that content, I mean, via geolocation closest to his, I mean, to his where he's connecting from, and he will be able to load the page like really, really fast. But how is this page already pre-built? I mean, where is the database? Where is my Drupal? Where is the backend? I mean, what it happens here, it's instead of having most of the processing within the main server, you know, that it's like providing the API endpoint. So we have another machine, in this case called build server, and this build server is the one who takes care of, is responsible for running that build. So it means there is a build process that it's get executed because something happens, either like clicking something or because there is a module from Drupal or WordPress plugin that triggers that particular, process, or might be a content change on your CMS trigger this build process. But what happens during this build process is this build server or this build machine, has a way to connect to your, server, your backend server, and to that particular API and fetch content from it, and then run a process for pre-creating or pre-building all your markup. And then all your pages are already rendered. And then the final result is that page gets deployed to a CDN. So your client, it doesn't only have to go to the CDN, and the CDN is gonna serve the page. And I know there is some cases where you need the API client side, when you need to like consume like live data, and well, you can keep your API alive, but at the end, like let's say 80% of your page or 90% of your page, like headers and footers and layouts and all the sidebars, everything could be still pre-built, and then only fetch what it's new, or only fetch what it requires to get fetched client side. And again, the benefit of doing something like this is your content is already rendered, so your clients visiting your page have a better experience because those pages load faster, because markup is already there. There is no like rendering process. It was run before in the server, and that render process, it was run only once per build or per deploy. And some of the benefits, and we can see from this Jamstack approach, it's a better performance. Again, you only are serving and consuming flat files, so there is no backend, there is no database, there is no web server doing the load of your pages. So again, performance is better, and your sites are more reliable. Again, there is no backend, so there is no problem with something is gonna happen. Like I will have like 100 of visitors, and then I have to increase my the power of my machines, provide more resources. That doesn't happen because you are serving like flat files, right? And it's more secure. For obvious reasons, we don't have we don't have Apache or Nginx. We don't have a backend. We don't have a database. That all those systems could live behind a firewall, or could be locked behind a firewall. So only editors or people adding content or interacting with content can access to, and also the build machine who will be like consuming the API. And the final result is hosting is cheaper because you're only hosting files. You can get those files and drop into a CDN, or you use a hosting provider with it has support for this. This kind of artifacts, deploying these artifacts, this, which is basically a bunch of like HTML files. Okay, and how Drupal makes sense. I mean, and all this static thing, right? Okay, I was talking about, okay, we moved from the monolithic approach to use something like more simple vanilla. And well, it makes sense if you start using something like Gatsby, on all this Jamstack, this Jamstack, I mean, approach. It's make a lot of sense with something like Gatsby, because Gatsby allow you to run this build process, seamlessly. But what is Gatsby? For those that are not aware, and maybe think Gatsby is a static site generator, because maybe that's how they like sell at the early beginnings of the project. But I mean, nowadays we can say Gatsby is no longer a static site generator. And based on what they have on their site, they said, Gatsby.org, GatsbyJS.org, they said Gatsby is a free and open source framework based on React. And well, that allows you to develop building like lazy fast website applications. But again, this is important. It's based on React. But more than a React framework, we can see Gatsby as a React application that allows you to create React apps. So again, and this is how everything is going to start making sense. So when we are using Gatsby, we can take advantage of the what they call the content mesh. And this is something like, let's try to scrape the content mesh. The content mesh is something like Gatsby allows you, or it's a mechanism for pulling data from different sources and allowing you from a single source of truth for that data that is coming from different sources. In the case of Gatsby, again, as was mentioned, Gatsby is a React app that allow you to fetch data from different sources. All those different sources could be a Drupal GraphQL endpoint, or a WordPress GraphQL endpoint, or a arbitrary GraphQL endpoint, or you can fetch data from Airtable, Firebase, MongoDB, or you can even go and as far as say, I don't need a backend system for this particular implementation. So you can load content from files. You can load content from markdown files, or going a little further and use MDX, which is basically JSX/React files inside markdown static files. Or you can even provide more structured data by using something like JSON files or YAML files. But again, Gatsby allows you to fetch data from different sources, then creates this GraphQL endpoint in memory that you can query and you can use to create your pages. So during this build process that is happening, that is provided by Gatsby, you can create different pages on your site. And then the final result, it's a React application, which is only a build directory with a lot of, flat files that you can now deploy to a CDN. What is happening here is now you have the artifact that you can deploy to a CDN, and you no longer need to, access content directly from an API if you're only serving a static file. If you don't require people to authenticate in your page, in your system, right? In your site, sorry. Okay, so now let's think about how can we use Drupal. Well, we can keep using Drupal, but in this case, we can use Drupal as a decoupled CMS. And what is a decoupled CMS? It's a content management system that makes your content accessible via either a RESTful or GraphQL API. In the case of Drupal, we have JSON API module and GraphQL module, and allow you to, and provide this content, or make this content accessible via those endpoints for you as someone implementing your site can consume those on any device or to any application. It means you can access that data from a mobile device, you can access that data from the CLI, you can access that data from your front-end application in order to build your pages. But now we can we can ask ourselves, why should I use Drupal? There's plenty of headless CMSs or decoupled CMSs. At this very moment, you can decide I can probably switch to WordPress because it provides a easier user interaction. Graphical interface for users. I mean, why we still want to use Drupal? In this case, I mean, we want to use Drupal maybe because we currently have legacy sites. You know, we have plenty of sites. Maybe this is government or this is education, and we have a lot of sites, and we want to keep using those. And okay, it's a well-tested and well-known UI, allows you to, I mean, create like complex data structure. I mean, and in this case, I mean, being more, I mean, having like creating like notes, adding paragraphs, media, taxonomies. I mean, that's pretty standard with the Drupal sites, and allows you to do a lot of like content management and workflow capabilities, right? So that's a good reason for using Drupal. And why Gatsby, right? I mean, there's another project, yes. I mean, there's Next.js, there's some other, I mean, like other projects. And well, I mean, allows you to provide data from different sources, allows you to connect to third-party services, provide you with a better developer experience, allows you to iterate faster, you know, and deliver like better work. And you know, another benefit of using this decouple approach is the separation of concerns. So, you know, front-end people, you can hire front-end people who takes care of front-end tasks, and you can keep using your backend developers to taking care of the backend work. So now let's move into, okay, now if we already have a backend system like Drupal or decoupled system, can we use this for providing like a more dynamic content? And the answer is yes, we can provide hybrid pages, like using client-side calls. An example of this is, think about a search page from your site. Maybe your site is full static, and you can probably use something like Lunar to provide client-side search, but maybe you have a lot of records and you don't want to load all those, I mean, nodes with data as JSON in memory. Or what you can probably do here is enable, you know, views in Solar within Drupal and GraphQL views and expose that view GraphQL. And now you can provide within your Gatsby site a little, you know, input where users can type what they are searching, and that via, you know, a client-side call, we can get that, text that user is trying to search, go to Drupal, via a GraphQL call, and again, that endpoint is exposing your views, and your views is connected to Solar, and Solar is taking care of doing all the indexing and whatever Solar is great to do. And again, it returns all the results back to client, to your React application, and then you take render client side, and you take care of client side rendering whatever you need to render, either, you know, the thumbnail, the text, and link to whatever. So how this looks like, again, how can you achieve something like this? Well, you have to add a view and expose data, client side. You have to connect this view with Solar, with your Solar engine. You enable GraphQL views module. And obviously from your React app, you call that view. And I mean, from the Drupal side of things, it's going to views. Once you enable the GraphQL module, the view module, you will have this display that you created. Your view is already connected to Solar, and it works. I mean, you can take advantage of all the knowledge you already have, and you know, it works. Another hybrid or dynamic approach could be something like a blog post. Think about a blog post. Let's say we have 5 records, or let's say we have hundreds of records, but we only want to show 5 on the first page. But maybe I run a build like Monday, and today is Wednesday, and there are 2 new blog posts on the site. And instead of running or waiting for running the build to deploy your site, what you can do here is load your page, load your static render page. You know, the let's say from the 1,000 records, I just want to load 5 to make, you know, my page load easier and faster. And then I will do a client call, but I will only fetch new nodes starting from this particular day that I know I run the build. What is going to happen here, I'm just going to hit my backend. I'm just going to fetch those new records, and I'm just going to use those together with the other records that I have on the build that I got from the build process. I can get both set of data, merge into one single set of data, and I can start rendering my page. So again, I'm only going back to my backend to fetch latest nodes that got created after the last build. And from the rest of the pages, I can probably create all the pagination. So instead of rendering like hundreds of pages, like page 1 and page 2 and page 4, because that it will probably consume a lot of build time. So instead of doing that, what we can probably do here is just get all that content into JSON files, deploy to my CDN, on my build process, and then client side, via client side, I can, doing once I start navigating next page or page, X number, what I can do here, it's called that particular JSON file that was already deployed to my CDN and consumed via client side from this static file. And again, the benefit of doing this is, the first client side call is only if new content was entered and published, using that decoupled CMS after the last build execution. All content that has already entered and published, on the build time, when you're running the build, it will get, rendered statically. And, and you can provide pagination, as I was mentioning, via this, JSON files, already deployed on the CDN. Okay. So now let's move to something else. Now let's move into building or using Gatsby and React to build something more like an app. And we can do something like this with Gatsby. Yep, you can do that. So think about this. We want to provide user authentication, and we want to allow users to authenticate, to identify them, and provide either personalized features or private content. So this can look something like this. I have this site. This is my Drupal site. This is my Gatsby site. I can go to this protected content, and as we can see here, so we have this login to read full article. So it means if I go here and say, visitor, and logged in, a new piece of content is gonna show up. Here it's gonna tell me, this content, it's and live demos is when let's refresh the page first. Refresh the page, and then, okay, now go again and go visitor. Login. And yeah, I can see this content. This is a protected content. It means my build, my build task, it only takes care of rendering, image, takes care of rendering this, but this piece of content is protected behind user authentication. So this is provided via a client-side call to the backend, in this case to Drupal. So it means like 99% of the page was pre-rendered, previewed, it was fast, and only this little piece that is, protected, it was called via client side. And within Drupal, this looks something like this. So we have, again, our content page, and instead of showing that particular piece of content, we show this like login to read full article. Once you log in, you show that particular piece of content. And again, it's not like the content is hidden somewhere. And how we get that? We just get this by using Drupal roles, the system, so we can allow, this particular field, it's only accessible by this visitor and editor role. It means Gatsby, which is the user that we use for the build mechanism, doesn't have access to that field, so that field won't be available on build time. So it means even if you try to add that to your GraphQL query, you won't be able to get that data because Drupal is not allowing to the Gatsby user, again, that is the one used on build time, to access that field. And then client side, you are logging as visitor or as editor. And then again, now you have access to that field. You client side do the call, and you get the data that is coming from Drupal, in this case via GraphQL, query. And now let's keep moving. Let's do another little demo. Let's see if this goes faster. What if I want to provide, a way to update my profile, or, update page or publish a page, and maybe providing an improved workflow? Can I do that? And yes, you can do that. And what will be the benefit for doing something like this? Allowing users to review and publish content directly from Gatsby, or even allow users to update content from Gatsby. And how this looks like. So let me go back here, and I'm just going to log out. And again, this is my site. So let's say I'm just going to load articles. I don't know why this is running so slow. So I'm just gonna run my Gatsby develop again. So I'm running Gatsby on my local machine, as you can see here, and I'm also running Drupal on my local machine here. And so this is my Drupal site that Gatsby is consuming to providing content and also to render the site. So the build process is running here, the Gatsby develop process is running here. And now let's see, as we can see here, we have content, like home, web, Jamstack, whatever. And it's running so slow, it's coming. Okay. And what is going to happen, we'll see how can we update content from one site to the other. And we can update content from, from Drupal and get reflected on Gatsby, and the opposite, update content from Gatsby and get the update on Drupal. So yeah, there's a question now. Yeah, I mean, like if you don't want to use you want to mind a hybrid approach, you can use Drupal Continue. Yeah, you can instead of logging from React app, you can just log into or send the user to log into Drupal and update content. We'll see how this look like. So again, I'm loading my Gatsby site. It's coming. So now I'm going to log in as an editor instead of editor, instead of a visitor. So once I log as an editor, you will see a little change on the site. So a little toolbar is showing here. So let's say I'm just going to go to articles and going to load my. So this is happening because I'm loading client side, not because so I have the the approach that I mentioned you about having a client side call. And now let's log the page, and now take a look at how this get in touch. So I'm going to get to this page that is the web application development. Go here, go edit, and I'm just going to update Drupal, and we'll see how the change gets automatically. We have live preview out of the box here. I don't know why it's things on. So you're here. And the site is built with basic fields, and in this case we have a few paragraphs, which is in this case we have this text image paragraph. So what I'm going to do is change this teaser field, hit save, and what is going to happen here, this save is going to trigger the refresh on my Gatsby site. So what is going to happen here, we will see this text, or we should see this text disappear. Yeah, the theme looks like Claro. The theme that it's gone. The theme I'm using is not Claro, it's Gene, that is based on Claro. So okay, now let's say I was able to update this because I was already on Drupal. But what if I just having logged into Drupal? I can just click this edit, action, and then maybe loading the Drupal site, and from there I can edit and provide the same experience that I was providing previously, which is good. But what if instead, what I wanted to do is to update from my Gatsby site? So I can go click publish here. What is going to happen? It's obviously Drupal doesn't have this refresh, so I have to reload my page, and we will see how this web development content is gonna show unpublished. So now it's unpublished here, and I can go back to my Drupal site and make changes from there if I want to, or because in this case I'm publishing this content because I don't want this to be part of this particular build, because something it went wrong. I don't want this to be as part of the build artifact that is going to get deployed to production. So I can go here. Maybe I want to or instead maybe it's someone push the content as not published. And this looks good. Can I change something? You click edit. I can go here. Let's remove this little piece here and hit save. And let's, this little paragraph should be better as well. So I'm just gonna take this piece and see, let's change something else. I think I hit cancel. So sorry, I'm just gonna get this one, hit save. And if we go here back to Drupal, and as you see it disappear, we need to again reload the page to get fresh content because the page was loaded before I edit on Gatsby. What is going to happen now, if I go edit, we'll see this is providing whatever I'm just telling here, and that paragraph content was updated. So now finally, let's remove this one from here. Gets published, hit save, and again I can keep moving things from one side to the other, and I'll see here. It's coming. It's kind of slow. And let me see why it's not coming. Let me refresh. Let's see that something's happening, live demos. But again, as you saw, you can provide this app, this React app within your Gatsby develop process, which means you are running Gatsby on develop mode. So before triggering the build, you can go to your Gatsby, make changes, approve content, change the status of the workflow of the status of the content, and finally publish the content if you want to. And what we just saw is, you are providing a way to users to authenticate. They can either go and update their profile or their preferences, and within your React app, you can also allow them to make changes on content. Like you can just is something simple as publish or publish content, or maybe enable or implement a content workflow, and you can change those statuses from your Gatsby site. This happens on when you are running your Gatsby on your development stage, not on your build part. On your build, on your build instance. And some other features you can provide from here is either maybe run a build from here or deploy to production, to another stage that you can see, the final result. So, and you can interact as much as you want. And you can take advantage of modules as build hooks from Drupal. So what you can do from your Gatsby site, it's called, a endpoint, and that endpoint can take advantage of build hooks module to trigger that particular build to, the stage of content to either Netlify or or Pantheon or your CDN. And again, finally, you can provide a way for users to interact with your site via login mechanism, and then allowing them access via their role on Drupal so they can update content. And that content could be fields, could be like paragraphs, and you can also update upload files or update media. That wasn't part of the scope of the demo, but that's totally doable. And just to finalize, remember the Drupal Persona, the screen that we saw. What if we think about something like this? Like the backend people, the backend developers. They can probably keep using Drupal. Front-end designers and front-end developers. Designers and front-end developers. They maybe can start using, something like Gatsby. They can take advantage of things like Storybook to create those components, and then use Gatsby to render those components. And how about site builders? Drupal out of the box provide a lot of features that it's better to stay on Drupal, like content, like site building, content modeling, enable views. That's good to keep in Drupal. For content, for like content creators, maybe we can start implementing those as React components and having on a Gatsby site or on a Next site or maybe Vue and having on Gridsome. And for sellers, well, now they can have Drupal. It's a really nice tool that you can use either as a monolithic, using a monolithic approach or a decouple approach. It's out of the box, the integrations with projects like frontend, or you can implement front-end strategies like Gatsby and whatever. So this is something like you can probably, I mean, I'm just trying to map what the Drupal persona is to in a decoupled world. So I think we have 5 minutes for questions. Sorry for taking so long. And question, let's go to jump to the questions. Okay, I'm just gonna read those questions. Okay, can we use Gatsby with Drupal JSON API, or we need GraphQL? Well, you can use both. I mean, whatever is your preference, either JSON API or GraphQL, it's up to you. So that was for Renata. Okay, there is a way that I can see, I mean, the questions, only questions on this chat, or the moderator has taken notes of those questions, or should I just jump into answer whichever question that I saw? Okay, should I just answer any question how I saw? And can artifacts be built separated to speed up the build process, or only updated specific artifacts? Okay, so I think you might be asking about, yeah, you can configure Gatsby to build only pages that where content got changed. You can either, I mean, make your life easy and use, Gatsby Cloud System, or you can configure your build pipeline to, add the proper flags and configuration, and try to mimic what they provide on their platform. But you can definitely run artifacts and only build pages that change, where content was changed, and that allows you to save you from time for building, like, your full site all over again. Dana, Stipperch build hooks looks like what my team has been talking about, needing for 2 years. Dana, now it's there. I mean, you have any questions, let me know. I mean, also, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message and directly, or Twitter, or talk about this, or during the session. I don't know. There's a networking area. I don't know if there's like private rooms for keeping the conversation. Maybe the organizer have a better idea of this than myself. And Gatsby internals, yeah, use Redux. Exactly, it use Redux. And so with modern stack, you use 2 hosting servers, 1 build server and 1 for the Drupal site. Well, you can use, you use 2 hosting servers. Well, the build server, could be like, created on the fly, as a build system, something like Circle CI, or or GitHub Actions or whatever. But the final result, yeah, you need like 2 hosting, spaces, 1 for the backend and 1 for the static files. And I think you can ask Pantheon, Steve Perch, did a session. They are working on, and we're working with them in providing, like this whole experience in 1 single place. And Gerardo, I believe as soon as you add some dynamic things into your static system, you will lose something. So I will argue that even if Gatsby is handling the authentication, you already lost something. Yeah, it's not like you lose or miss something. In the end, your page, you can still be like 99% of your page, and only delegate that login part, and only, let's say, provide either personalized content, or protected content within that particular piece. But the perception of speed could be the same, because you delegate that process, because React allows you to render and delegate that process until it comes, and then when the data is come, then you rehydrate your components. So again, let's say your page is a component that is compounded by different components, and one of those components is fetching data dynamically. So let's say you have 10 components, 9 of those are rendered statically, and only that single piece that requires, authentication and client-side content is the one that will get rehydrate client-side. So you still can provide a good experience of any performance. And I know building a full form API on React, it's kind of complex task, and we are aware of that. But it's a chance to provide a minimum set of fields, or form capabilities within a React app to interact with our backend, in this case, Drupal. And another benefit is if we decouple this, then we can switch the switch the backend at some point, and you change the layer, the middle layer, from interacting with our backend, and switch that to, instead of having this GraphQL mutations calls to Drupal, we can, change those queries to interact with mutations to a WordPress site or to our own custom application. What about user experience, like web forms? Okay, whenever you need to store data, or you're required to interact with with this kind of situation, like forms or comments, ideally you should use an external service to do that. In this case, you can still use Drupal as as an API, where you can push those forms, you can push those comments, allow Drupal to process that data and expose back to an API, and then consume on your static site. And again, you can do a similar approach. Whenever you build your site, you can load all those comments, and only new comments, added, post, build, fetch those, client side. And again, anything that requires server-side processing, you can move those processes to external API. In some cases, like serverless cloud functions can take care of that functionality. Okay, how long does typically take for fetch content to show on the site after updating directly on Drupal? Well, as you saw, it's a few seconds when you change something on Drupal and gets refresh on Gatsby. For some reason, my local machine is giving me a hard time because it's a demo, and I'm in DrupalCon, so that's why it was slower than expected. And for some reason also, when you're using this video tools, like either Zoom or in this case Hopping, and you are on OS X, then seems like CPU goes crazy, and allow all of the resources to the video processing, and the rest of your computer start behaving a little strange and slow. But it's kind of fast, okay. And team looks like Claro, but wasn't Claro, was Gian. And nothing. Are you losing any Jamstack benefits if Drupal handles login versus the Jamstack? No, you don't. Again, most of your site is still static. Lucas, I already answered that. And simple, yeah, as Joe. Hi, Joe. Answer the question about authentication. Yeah, simple. You can use simple out for doing this. JWT is another option. If you don't mind a hybrid approach, you can let Drupal continue to handle login. Yes, you can do that. In production, you should use a tested and robust, solution to handle authentication. Yeah, you can do that. You can use Auth0. You can use Firebase. You can use, AWS has its own, so you can rely on those systems to allow user interaction and login and managing login on that. Authentication tutorial, and I think we got covered most of the questions. Okay, another one. Maybe Algolia will be the word for you. Yes, ideally, if Algolia will expose an API that you can call from your search box, it will do the work for you, Jim. Yeah, I have not tried Lunar mass paragraph. Okay, yeah. Talking about Lunar, having Lunar for client-side code. Probably the issue with Lunar or client-side, search is when you have a lot of content, it starts getting a little more complex than you expected. And I think we are done. I am not sure if any of the moderators is gonna jump and say this is done, or what will be the approach. I'm just gonna stop sharing. Hello. Any moderators? Again, you have any other question? Thank you. Thank you for attending. Yeah, we missed the beers, Carlos. Yeah. And but we can have beers from home, you know, and you know, share photos of those beers. And we meet the party and we meet the after party as well. So again, feel free to ping me either during the conference from our site. I mean, Twitter. I mean, feel free to ask any questions and provide feedback. And thank you all. Yes, I will. I will share my slides on Twitter, and I will share slides back to the organizers so they can upload to the page. Will I share the code? The code is not in a shareable state yet. It's kind of dirty, but we will we will create a repository that we will share with all those examples and practices we have developed during the process of implementing decouple. I mean, doing decouple implementations. What is Blaze CMS? Yeah, okay, Ryan. It's a CMS project we were working last year and gonna revamp this year again. So ping me directly if you want to know more about it. Long story short, Blaze CMS is a hybrid CMS. It's allowed you to manage like content, like it helps you to do or use as a Git-based CMS, but it also as a decouple or headless CMS. Ping me directly if you want more information. You want more information, Ryan.